really lucky and you're right on the right day, you can clamber up in the ice and pick up the object exactly where it melted out.
A mysterious story of ancient humans is melting out of the ice.
This type of artifact, this is going to be more than 1,000 years old.
In northern Canada, the frontier of archaeology and climate change.
We're not getting just the stone, we're getting the whole weapon. And we were absolutely flabbergasted.
My mind immediately goes to, what's the story behind it?
Wow.
How old do you think that is?
Well,
But the surprises don't stop with the artifacts.
You now have a human being. I mean, this could be, you know, your relative.
Prehistoric secrets frozen in time until now.
Oh my God.
isn't that something?
In a government lab in the Yukon, a collection of ancient hunting tools that holds the secrets to a missing chapter of human history.
This one here is my particular favorite, and I don't know if you can see this, but this small segment, about 3 inches long, it's got a couple of twists of sinew on it and parts of a feather that are still wedged underneath that sinew. This is actually the piece that started the whole ice patch phenomena. When we got the radiocarbon date back at 4300, it's just all the lights went on and we saw that this was one of the oldest preserved organic artifacts found ever in Canada.
Organic artifacts, that's the key. Wood and feathers and sinew that otherwise would have rotted away centuries ago. Instead, they were preserved in the southern Yukon's ice patches. But what is an ice patch anyway? And how is it different from a glacier?
We've lost about 10 square kilometers worth of ice. The really big difference is that glaciers move. For ice to move, it needs to be about 30 to 40 meters thick, so roughly 100 feet or more. And when the ice is that thick, because of its own weight, it deforms under its own weight and starts moving. So in the 1960s, they had a little kind of research camp up here. Behind us we have a crashed Cessna aircraft. This crashed probably about 50 years ago. When I first worked here about 10 years ago, it was about a kilometer up glacier from here.
The moving glacial ice has actually carried the plane wreck down to this spot. If that plane had crashed on an ice patch, it would have remained in the same place.
So in ice patches, because they're not moving, the material that falls on the surface really becomes preserved in place. And things can be preserved for thousands and thousands of years.
So ice patches can be big, but not as big as glaciers. And they've been sitting in the same place for thousands of years. That is, until now. Their rate of melting is unprecedented. And while the rapid thaw is scary for climatologists, Gregg and Christian Thomas have chanced across an entirely new scientific discipline: ice patch archaeology.
Chris was just walking along the edge of the ice for about 3 meters from the edge of the ice here, and he found a dart shaft that has melted out of the ice and looks like perhaps it's been caught in the meltwater channel and moved in several pieces down to where we see it now.
When you look around this landscape, there's no trees, so the only way for a substantial piece of wood like this to get up here is for someone to actually bring it up. So when we see wood, we automatically know it's an artifact. This type of artifact, this is going to be more than 1,000 years old. You wouldn't find this in a non-frozen site. That wood would have rotted away hundreds of years ago, so we know this is pretty fresh out of the ice.
There's a good fit right there, Chris.
Looks like it, perfect.
Oh, good one, Chris, good eye.
Little fragment of the dart. You know, people hypothesized that there were feathers on the end of these weapons actually finding ancient examples of the weapons allows us to know how people position feathers on the shaft so that we don't have to hypothesize. We can look to the collection and measure and see how they constructed these things and how they intended them to fly.
The Yukon used to be an archaeological backwater. Then, suddenly, the artifacts were being disgorged, and Canada was leading the way and unraveling the many secrets of the melting ice. You might think what they have just found is an old arrow. It's not. It's a technology that predates bows and arrows by thousands of years. It's a hunting tool called an atlatl. An atlatl is a carved piece of wood that allows the hunter to hurl a dart with greater force over a greater distance than he could by simply throwing a spear.
This is where members of the World Atlatl Association meet to compete and see how well they can compare to other throwers.
There are actually atlatl leagues around the world, but most of the best dart throwers are here. Ryan Grossmeyer is an engineer at the University of Missouri. Grossmeyer has taken the dimensions of those ancient wooden atlatl shafts found in the Yukon and made exact replicas to study how effective they were as hunting tools.
These are all accurate replicas of individual darts that have been recovered from ice patches on mountaintops. When they're thrown, atlatl darts have to flex a lot to fly properly.
The dart shafts wobble wildly in the air from the force of the throw, but then, amazingly, find their mark on the target.
The feathers are important for keeping the dart flying straight. When you apply force to the back end of the dart, it can cause the dart to spin around like this. The feathers are what start the dart spinning and cause the back end to stay behind the front end. Otherwise, you can have the dart spin around in flight. These darts from the Yukon are actually very sophisticated. They are more sophisticated, in fact, than any modern dart that modern competitors are throwing. This would have taken a lot of time to do with stone tools, but I think it was integral to how these fly accurately.
Okay, the official order.
In terms of accuracy, there are competitors here today who can easily hit a dinner plate-sized target from about 20 meters.
Ryan Grossmeyer.
And that's definitely accurate enough to take down something like a caribou or any kind of deer.
In my mind, I envision, say, half a dozen hunters in pursuit of a herd of caribou. One or two get hit by the darts. And meanwhile, the darts that missed the mark perhaps got buried in the snow and then incorporated into the ice. So it's like a giant deep freeze. Anything that's been lost either on the ice or at the edge of the ice or happened to die around the ice often becomes entombed in the ice for hundreds or thousands of years. And we happen to be in the decade or in the century that ice is melting. We don't know how old this particular ice patch is. The oldest thing we found from here, I think, is 900 years old. But other ice patches are as much as 9,000 years old. So it's a real window into the past. We have got a preserved record of ancient people's hunting techniques and traditions.
Looks like what we got here is maybe a swan or goose leg bone that's been split, and one end of it's been ground into a point, likely used as an awl for punching holes in leather and material for repairing objects.
My mind immediately goes to the what's the story behind it? Because I've got a storyteller mom. I always am like, oh, I wonder how did that get there? What's the story around the person who prepared it?
So this is definitely the first time I think we found an awl on an ice patch.
It's one of the first times we found a non-projectile point on an ice patch.
Huh.
That's a beauty.
Is it a woman's tool or a man's tool? Is it a, how did they lose it?
In this valley here or this next one over there?
This is Friday Creek, which runs down into this area.
The artifacts are telling a story that the elders heard about from their grandparents, that these mountains were once overrun with caribou.
We're at the ridge between the Friday and Alligator ice patches. And this is a stone hunting blind. That's one of a series of 7 blinds that run along the crest of this ridge. And I first came here in about 1999, and Art showed us where these blinds were. When did you first know about these blinds, Art?
Oh boy, I can't, I was about 8 or 9 years old.
Let's assume there were people behind each set of blinds, and the caribou or sheep would go through them, and then you'd shoot them with your arrow or your dart. We didn't find anything organic that we could date, but last year, 2 years ago, was the first time that we came here, and we found a couple of broken spear points. And from our work within the ice patches, we know that the spear points were used right up until 1,200 years ago, and they were replaced then by antler arrow points. And because we've got spear points right next to these blinds, we know they're older than 1,200 years old.
Were there a lot of caribou up here?
I don't know why, but they disappeared from this area in 1898. Because you ask the old timers about the caribou, they'll say there were so many caribou in those mountains back there, you think the whole mountain is moving with caribou. And the shit in these snow patches proves it.
See all those dark streaks in the ice? That's all caribou dung. And when caribou biologists first found it in the mid-90s, it was stunning news. No one knew how it got there, because as far as anyone knew, the herds had disappeared a century earlier.
It was amazing, like you could see as it was melting out the caribou dung, almost like it had been deposited days ago in some cases, quite fresh looking. So we knew that this wasn't some phenomenon in recent time, that it had to have been laid down by generations and generations of caribou. So we just said, well, we better collect some of it.
As they were scooping up their dung samples, Don Russell and his partner found the pieces of what they thought were bits of an arrow shaft, and they took them back to Whitehorse.
And they said, first of all, it's not an arrow shaft, it's atlatl shaft.
And then we run a date on it because it looked like an arrow shaft. And I said, oh, that's pretty cool. Run a date, it comes back over 4,000 years old, and we, uh-oh. Right.
I think the fecal sample that I collected was, I think, 1,600 years old, and the atlatl dart was 4,300 years old. So that kind of started the whole thing.
And all of a sudden, we're not getting just the stone, we're getting the whole weapon. We're getting, the spears with the stone points, the wooden shafts and the feathers and the sinew. We're getting the arrow shafts with the feathers and sinew and the ochre on them. And we're seeing for the very first time as archaeologists the whole weapon. And we were absolutely flabbergasted. We've never had access to that knowledge before, right? It was, what we could learn from talking to the elders about life in the old days. And all of a sudden, we have an arrow, we can date it. We know exactly that it's, 150 years old or 300 years old. Or we can take a dart and say, oh no, this one's 6,000 years old. So we couldn't do that with stone. Now we could.
They could get an age on the artifacts because organic material can be carbon dated. Stone can't.
The ice was melting, and at the base of the ice, sometimes on the surface of the ice, there were artifacts just lying around. And it was amazing that summer of 1999. It was every day the helicopter would come back with new, amazing artifacts that nobody had seen before. It was incredible.
So the dung and the artifacts were very old. But a big question remained. Why were they finding it all up so high in the mountains? Why weren't the hunters simply killing animals in the valleys, where they didn't need to expend so much energy climbing? It turns out they were hiking up to where their prey was finding relief from the summer heat.
One of the things is that caribou are very well adapted for cold conditions and not very well adapted for warm conditions. So it's an opportunity to help them thermoregulate so that by congregating on the ice, by laying down on the ice, they can stay cool. But I think more important than that was avoiding harassing insects. See how those caribou are twitching like that? They're being harassed by the warble flies and the botflies. You can just see the whole animal shaking and shimmering to try to get rid of those.
Yeah, it's only hot days in summer when you find them on the ice in snow patches up on the high mountains. We went up to an ice patch to get some water to drink on a hot day, and a big mountain caribou came right up to us. Yeah. And he didn't see us. His eyes were drooping and his tongue was hanging out. He was hot and he was bothered, and there was a cloud of flies. The warble flies is like a bee. It looks like a bee and it buzzes around like a bee and drives them nuts, but it doesn't bite them. It lays eggs on the legs, on the fur. As they hatch, a little larva would drill into the skin and go through the bloodstream up to the back. And then they just leave a nice little hole, which is okay. On a fur, you can't see the holes. Right. But on a piece of leather full of holes, not very many people can appreciate that.
When they get onto the ice, those insects stay off to the sides. They can't fly. They don't congregate around the caribou. So the caribou get relief when they're on the ice. And then it's a question of if the caribou is 20 meters away or 40 meters away, can you hit it with the dart? Can you shoot it with the arrow? Do you have to get closer?